sit like that, you have your faces cut off.
I should be a little closer.
Let's get it on! Sprawl and brawl, round and pound. Get ready for an MMA showdown. Now the ultimate Octagon Insider, Sean and Tristan Ducross.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sports Words with your boys, the Ducross brothers. I'm Tristan Ducross. Along my side, as always, my partner in crime, the one and only Sean Ducross. Sean, our show is the realest combat sports talk show where we back our opinions with facts and we help educate a lot of our fans. UFC Fight Night 114 is coming up around the corner. UFC 214 happened, but we're looking right now at UFC 114 right around the corner, and quite frankly, we are on the verge of seeing who is going to take on be the next flyweight contender for the flyweight championship against Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, Tristan, you're talking about two rising stars in the flyweight division that's getting some notoriety, but it's like, are these the really two viable candidates for the flyweight opportunity? You got Sergio Pettis versus Brandon Moreno. On paper, you look at Sergio Pettis and say, well, he's 6-2, 3-fight win streak. Is he really the top of the food chain in the flyweight? Is he really the guy that you say, you know what, he's the end-all, be-all? Then you look at Brandon Moreno and you say, well, he may be the answer. He's on an 11-fight win streak. He's not been defeated in 5 years. He's the guy out of these two. When you look at what's transpiring in the flyweight division, you got Demetrius Johnson taking on, Ray Borg. And if Demetrius Johnson loses this fight, what does this entail?
Right.
What does this mean for the flyweight division? If he doesn't lose, is it really the best interest for Sergio Pettis or Brandon Moreno? Probably not. If you're one of those two guys, you probably chalk it up and say, well, Demetrius, move up in weight.
But what's funny about that, you're talking about moving up in weight, when Dana White has made it perfectly clear that he's thinking about cutting the ties and cutting out the flyweight division.
Well, because the flyweight division is one of the weakest ones in the UFC. It's like the women's bantamweight or the women's strawweight. Rinse, repeat, regurgitate. That's what the flyweight division is. When Demetrius Johnson is pound for pound the best fighter in mixed martial arts, period. And you ran roughshod through the division for quite some time. What's left to prove? Where do you go from here? If he does cut out the flyweight division, and this is the end of Demetrius Johnson, then maybe it is best for Demetrius Johnson to cut ties with the UFC and maybe think about going to Bellator for a different challenge. Maybe that's the next avenue. But there's a lot riding on Sergio Pettis versus Brandon Moreno and what the outcome is of this fight. And you look at this, both guys do have quite a resume. Pettis, despite being 6-2, has the wins over title contenders in the flyweight division of John Moraga, Chris Curacao. Moreno has done the same thing. He's beat Luis Samolka, Ryan Benoit, Dustin Ortiz. He's finished two of them before the third round. So everything piles up that on paper it should be a good fight. What makes this a good fight is the fact that you got a stand-up guy versus a guy who likes to fight on the mat. Pettis likes to stand up, use his creative striking, impose his will a little bit. Brandon Moreno, on the other hand, loves to grind it out, loves to get the fight on the mat, and on top of that, the guy will go ahead and submit fighters. He's submitted the last 10 fighters he's fought, the last 10 fights he's fought, he submitted the last 4.
And what's interesting about Moreno that a lot of people are slipping on Moreno is that Moreno is is 3-0 inside the UFC octagon, but he's also on an 11-fight win streak period. Okay? So he's no slouch coming into this against Sergio Pettis. But what people don't understand is that Moreno, being the type of fighter he is, the guy that can finish fights at will, it seems like, he's facing a guy that has a pedigree and that's trying to get back to it being a title contender. Now, the interesting point about this is that if you're Sergio Pettis, you cannot allow this to go to the ground, Sean. You have to stand up and you have to try to keep this fight standing at all costs. Because if it goes down to the ground, forget it. The edge, without a doubt, is to Moreno. The striking, though, goes to Sergio Pettis. So what type of fight are we going to get coming into this? I don't want to see Moreno come in there and think that he can stand there and trade with Sergio Pettis. Because that won't be good for the long run for Moreno in that fight. It will be a short night for Moreno if he gets in there and thinks he can slug it out with Sergio Pettis. Then you look across Rashad Evans versus Sam Alvey, right? Sam Alvey, Rashad Evans is at the point where they're almost at an interesting point in their career. Rashad Evans once was a light heavyweight, once understood, and all of a sudden now you move to middleweight. You know, you suffered your first loss in the middleweight division to streak down your issues that you have. Rashad Evans left his camp of the Black Zillions to try to turn around his career. And you're hoping that him moving down to middleweight will go ahead and allow him to adjust and to adapt and get back on the grind in this new weight division, because you're looking at a guy who is 37 years old, he's long in the tooth, and he's lost his last 3 fights, 2 via decisions, and then 1 via TKO. So you look at that and see the fact that he's gotten beat, the fact that he's had issues. You've got to look at it and say, well, you know what? What's left in the tank? He's long in the tooth. What else can he prove? Then you get Sam Alvey, and you're looking at, well, Sam Alvey is an interesting character.
Yeah, he is.
Is Sam Alvey too focused on his social media game? Too focused on his podcast? Is he causing an issue? That's the one that remains to be seen, is Sam Alvey focused or not? So if Sam Alvey is focused, then he poses a huge threat to Rashad Evans, because he has that one-punch power. He has that ability to put somebody to sleep. Sam Alvey is 4-1 in the last 5 fights. His last fight, he took it to a decision. This could be one of both things. This could go to a decision, and it could be heart-wrenching to watch Rashad Evans go to another decision and get beat. The thing I don't like about this matchup is that Sam Alvey, as an interesting cat as he is that he's not a guy that's going to come to your face and press the fight. He's more of a boring type fighter. He likes to sit back and allow the fight to come to him. But now you're facing a guy in Rashad Evans who is longer in the tooth at 37. He has now lacked the identity of his own fight game because he was good at boxing and wrestling. He was able to blend the two. Now as he's older, I see that he has issues where he can't blend the two. That he has gone to, well, depending on the fighter that's in front of him, will dictate the style that he fights. So in this case, is he a wrestler? Is he a boxer? He has an identity crisis coming into this fight. Much like Chris Weidman, we said on our show, is that Rashad Evans, 37 years old, downside of his career, has lost 3 consecutive fights. Going against Sam Alvey, you beat Sam Alvey, you might get that last-ditch effort to possibly, maybe, talked about.
The last hurrah.
Right. The last run that you might be able to get you to that narrative, to that end of your narrative, and be able to claim your rightful spot in the middleweight division if you can string along some wins.
And you said it best, is that he has an opportunity to change his story. But at this point, you're wondering if his story is coming to a close and if Sam Alvey is going to end that chapter. If Rashad Evans loses this fight, loses via knockout or decision, he's got to really start contemplating retirement. Because if dropping down in weight doesn't benefit him, what's the point to fight anymore? What's left?
I don't like when fighters have to stand there and justify their means for why they fight, okay? And Rashad Evans is at that point where he says that until that day that knocks on the door that he cannot go anymore is the day that he will stop fighting. Well, at what time does that knock come on the door that you are 0-3 and that lingering fourth loss is right around the corner, and it might not be your call about whether your career has ended. It's the UFC's call on whether or not they're going to release you.
And that's what it will come down to if he loses this fight. Will the UFC contemplate about releasing Rashad Evans? Will they think about that his time is simply behind a desk? Is that where we're at with Rashad Evans? I don't think anybody's questioning whether he wants to go or not. And I don't think anybody's questioning, outside of us, does he have anything left in the tank? I think they just say, oh, well, it's Rashad Evans.
Right.
Not realizing the situation that's presenting itself right in front of everybody.
I like the aspect of this fight for Sam Alvey because it's a big name.
It is.
Yes, it's on a decline for Rashad Evans, but it still has that name, Rashad Evans, former light heavyweight champion.
And at some point, with the jostling of positioning in the middleweight division, when does Sam Alvey get his opportunity at the middleweight title shot if he continues to run off wins?
See, I think now's the time for Sam Alvey. You beat a guy like Rashad Evans.
And he goes to 5-1 in the last
5-1 in his last 6. Start moving up the rankings. I think that he gets a top 15 fight, finally.
And Sam Alvey is the guy that, if you look at the new structure of the UFC, about, oh, you got to talk your way into a fight. You got to do this to get a big fight. Sam Alvey can do that. He could take to his social media. He could take to this. He could take to that. And be successful at it. So when you look at it, why not? And it's like, well, Sam Alvey has everything in his grasp right now. So we got to see what's going on, what's happening with this fight card, because it's an interesting one. It's right after UFC 214. It gets everything kind of squared away because it's like, wow, we just saw 214 and now we get to kind of cruise in, relax after that, and go from there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward, what the positionings are for these fighters.
And didn't you also have Ronda Marcos versus Alexa Grasso? Is the blueprint out there for Alexa Grasso after Felice Herrig? You know, we keep talking about blueprints being out there and people saying, hey, you know, if you watch enough footage, you break enough fights, you find a weakness. Alexa Grasso might be that person. Ronda Marcos might be able to finally put some wins together and be able to get past Alexa Grasso and be able to...
But we've talked about female fighters in how you get attention. Ronda Marcos is the prototypical of the Instagram queen bee. Let's post half-naked photos and try to get a fight that way. Alexa Grasso is your grinder. Your woman fighting champion that came from Invicta, that rose to fame, that everybody thought was going to be the next best thing, arrives in the UFC and doesn't quite grasp the challenge. It'll be interesting to see which Alexa Grasso you get. If she loses to Ronda Marcos, What does that say about the evolution and the growth of Alexa Grasso? That will be the question that will be asked after this fight if she loses such a decision. See,
it's a really telling story that when you get the beautiful women, and that's all you can think about, not whether they're good fighters inside that octagon or not. And that's disheartening.
To the UFC, it's all about the pretty game.
Absolutely. Because you go over to UFC 214 and the fallout after that. And we're going to get that here in a minute. But we're going to cut to a break. And we're going to talk about a new light heavyweight champion. And the so-called not so pretty in the UFC 214. And what it actually meant to the 145 women. We are the Sports Warriors. For the latest news, real talk, make sure you visit www.ducrossbrothers.com. Our Facebook pages, Sean and Tristan Ducross. Let's talk some combat sports and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Sean and Tristan Ducross, the Sports Warriors. Check us out on Facebook Live and YouTube on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or you can visit our website at www.ducrossbrothers.com.
All right, everybody. UFC 214 happened over the weekend. We are your boys, Sean and Tristan Ducross, the Sports Warriors, where we bring you the real talk on the breakdowns and the fallouts of cards and the latest hot topics going on in MMA. And no, we're not going to talk about all that other in between stuff. That's not us. Woodley Maia. We had an interview and we talked to T. Johnson of Archangel Worldwide MMA this afternoon. We will have that video up if you checked out our Facebook page, Ducross Bros. You can see it on there as well. But we're not really the stereotypical guys that, boo fighters. We understand the mixed martial arts game. We've been in it for a while. But Woodley and Maia, was it a boring fight? Was it a lackluster fight? To a certain degree, yes. To CompuStrike, T. Woodley broke the all-time least striking ever in the history of fighting. That's not a record you want to hold. But when you have a guy that is one-dimensional, and we said this on a preview, Sean, remember? That we said that Maia, as he's gotten older, he's become a one-dimensional fighter. And being a one-dimensional fighter, what was he good at? He needed to figure out how to get the fight to the ground because his stand-up was not going to stand toe-to-toe with Tyrone Woodley. So at what point do you change your game plan, alter something? Well, in this case, he couldn't, Sean. He couldn't stand there and bang. He couldn't stand there and fight. So, for the fourth time, Tyrone Woodley, defending his title, he was able to proceed. To give you what you need, stop 24 takedowns, Sean. And yet fans would dare to boo. Dare to boo. Do I like Tyrone Woodley? Am I a fan of Tyrone Woodley? Not really. I know what he's capable of. I've covered a few of his fights. I've seen him in Strikeforce. I know what he's capable of doing. But he's the guy that will go in there, have the title around his waist, and do anything necessary to keep that title. Even if it means to fight a boring fight. He clipped Damian Maia a few times.
And I get where Dana White was saying that, well, he had one eye and he could have probably finished the fight sooner. I get that. Trust me, I completely understand that. But at the same time, when you're consistently playing defense, there's not a whole lot you can do. Because why do you want to get caught with a guy that can grab your arm and submit you in 2 seconds?
Oh, absolutely.
Was it a boring fight? Sure it was. Did it deserve to be booed? Maybe, maybe not. But when you look at the fight game and look at what mixed martial arts is, it's a strategic game. It's a mental game.
I'm tired of these fans thinking that when you go to a UFC event or you go to a mixed martial arts event, and the first thing is that they want to see blood and gore. They want to see somebody get their head smashed in. And to me, that's not mixed martial arts. Like, if you want to see the old school 300 Spartan days of the gladiators, where I'm going to chop your head off, bare knuckle fighting, go watch street fights on YouTube.
Right?
This is mixed martial arts. That's what MMA stands for, okay? If you don't like it and you don't understand or grasp the idea behind mixed martial arts, step aside. Don't go see the events. Don't go cheer on your boys. Don't go cheer on your fighters, because, dude, that is so far wrong about how these fans justify what a mixed martial art is. We stand here every day, and I'm thinking, dude, man, yes, it might be a boring fight, but look at the technique that is used to avoid.
Because you want to know how much energy and endurance it takes for you to stop 25 takedowns? You kidding me? You know how much energy and how much weight that is on your legs to sprawl and avoid takedowns? It takes about as much energy as it takes out of you that it does out of the guy that's trying to take you down.
And what's interesting about this fight is that Dana White called him out, put Tyron Woodley on blast. I mean, when is it enough for a promoter that doesn't want to promote fighters and expects you to promote themselves, all of a sudden put every single thing on them?
Right?
I don't get it where a promoter can slam another fighter or threaten to take away his division because of one of two things. You can't sell tickets. You can't sell pay-per-views. You get booed out of a building. But yet, both the guys that I'm referring to, Mighty Mouse Johnson, as well as Woodley, last time I checked, they're your champ, and why not promote them? You expect them to promote. I think that's where this whole entire thing is wrong. And now you got a bunch of people that's thinking, oh, well, if he's going to dog me out like that, I have dirt on him. Okay, so now we're playing school year bully stuff here. That's what we're doing, Sean. We're bullying each other at this point. Well, he says this, I'm going to push him back. Why? What does that accomplish? You are a world champ. To hell with Dana White and the UFC fans. Tyron Woodley is the champ. Reigning and defending that title 4 times. And all you want to do is talk bad about him. And he knocked out your former middleweight champion in Robbie Lawler. But let's also add this, Sean. He has a torn labrum and he fought that fight.
Now, how much of that was just him having an excuse? How much of that was just him saying, yeah, you know what, I didn't throw because I had a torn labrum? How much of that was an excuse rather than the actual reality of the situation? Because of the fact that he was getting dogged so openly and so aggressively by Dana White. Like I said, not a big fan of Tyron Woodley. But you've got to give the guy mad respect for going in against a one-dimensional fighter who's world-class on the ground and stop 25 takedowns. Stop being biased about wanting two guys to stand in front of each other and slug it out. Get over it. Realize fighting is across the board however you want to view it.
From Kempo to Taekwondo to wrestling It's called the mixed martial arts for a reason. And unfortunately,
so as the fans of this sport, go into the sport with open eyes and realize what MMA is. I get that the UFC has put it on the map so much that when people say, oh, I do UFC, I kiss my butt about that. When you look at it and then you see about, oh, mixed martial arts to you is a stand and bang fight. Wrong again. Wrong again. Stop booing these fighters. These fighters go out there every single day to put on a show for you guys to entertain you. It may not be the prettiest. It may not be the classiest. But at the end of the day, they do it for the fans.
Dude, you talk about do it for the fans. Let's talk about the Daniel Cormier thing. Okay? This still bugs me still to this day. Still to this very minute, it bugs me. I still get these goosebumps on my arm because it pains me to see another man cry inside the cage. You as a interviewer, you have a code that you never interview somebody that gets concussed or knocked out. Okay? Joe Rogan broke his own rule. His own rule. Now people want to point fingers and say that Dana White told them to, or the TV station told them to. I don't buy that one bit.
No, I buy it. I buy it for the simple fact that I want to play devil's advocate. I want to give you that spin. I want to give you something that, because of who we are, real talks, real opinions, don't sugarcoat anything. I want to give you another thought process. Okay? We heard Daniel Cormier said there was nothing really exchanged between him and Dana White. That the heated argument between him and Dana White that was slightly caught on TV was just the fact that he was not coherent. He thought that the fight was stopped prematurely. He wanted to go after Big John McCarthy. Well, if you listen to Big John McCarthy's interview that he did apologizing to DC, you are inclined to believe such. The initial response to me, and then seeing the Joe Rogan interview, was this way. DC knew he got knocked out.
I don't think he did.
He knew he got knocked out.
Right.
He was not happy he lost to John Jones. He was not happy with the fact that they wanted him to stay in the octagon for the post-fight interview. He wanted to leave. They didn't want him to.
Right, they stopped him at the edge of the cage.
They brought him back, and then, oh look, after everything was done, then they interviewed him. I think it was predetermined to set up Daniel Cormier for the fall victim of this fight.
But to think about this, Sean, here's a guy that's been the face of that light heavyweight division for what? Seemingly almost over 3 years, right? Here's a guy that goes on national TV week after week, even a week before his fight with John Jones on Fox, to do his commentating duties. And you're going to sandbag him like that? That is beyond disrespectful. I don't understand anybody that is put in that position to be willing and to accept responsibility for what happened. John Jones knocked him silly. Unnecessary punishment on the edge. But for the fans to then dog out DC on the internet. You internet trolls, you crack me up. You really do. You guys have nothing better to do. Keyboard warriors, nothing better to do.
I saw you get a little bit booty tickled about that whole meme thing. And like I told you was, do I agree or disagree with the situation that was at hand because of DC?
Right.
Like, I get where you're coming from. I get where our people of Fightbook were coming from. It was all over social media. I get it. But at the same time, when you do it to yourself, your subsequent to the repercussions of your own actions. I felt bad for DC, but media reaction to me was, as soon as Joe Rogan was interviewing him, I was like, that was a freaking meme. There it goes. That's why I feel they set Daniel Cormier up. They knew he was going to cry. He cried the first time. What made this any different? When he can't beat the one guy he set out to beat. If you can't beat that one guy and you feel like you have nothing left to prove, why do you think anything else is going to be any different?
True.
Daniel Cormier was a victim of the UFC and the internet trolls. But when you present it to yourself, whether he did it unknowingly or whether he didn't do it knowingly, he did it to himself. One of our guys on Facebook said it was, man, the internet is unforgiving. Yes,
it absolutely is.
The internet is the worst thing known to mankind. They're the worst critics when it comes to any sport or anything out there, period. Because they're sitting behind a keyboard and they can take a shot across the bow and there's nothing you can do about it. Unless you could go find the troll. So you look at it and you're like, well, I get it. And you see what's happening and you see what's going on. You're like, what can we do to prevent this? What can we do to change the avenue? You look at it, it's like, Daniel Cormier did it to himself. You knew that the internet was going to feed on you. The internet fed on John Jones for a year and a half.
With the cocaine and the memes with that, yeah. I just think that
you either give the internet something to fight for, or you're going to give them something to attack you against.
See, and that's what bugs me about this world. Like it's not even just the internet, Sean. It's like everything that is in this world. Like it's about how we raise our kids, how this society brings up the kids and allow them to run amok or teach them no respect, a lack of respect. That's the world we live in. I get that. But man, I guess I hold out too much hope for people to understand that there's far more than what is being perceived and brought out there to the forefront. I believe that at this point, that you have to understand that as a human being, everybody, regardless of whether it's right or wrong, I believe wholeheartedly that you need to be held accountable for your actions. And these internet trolls, there's nobody that can do that. And that's disappointing. Because then it makes me worry about the people that are out there in this world that voted for a presidency or voted for certain things, and it leaves you left scratching your head. That's discouraging. To kick a man while he's down, I don't like that. Like, there's nothing this guy could have done differently. He couldn't have stopped crying. He couldn't get his bearings. I've seen the video from the overhead camera of DC. The struggle is real with that one. Like, it's scary to see another man incoherent, wobbly, pushing people, yelling. I can't accept that. I can't accept that people are okay with making people a laughingstock. I can't. And then you look at Christiane Cyborg Santos coming into there for her 145-pound division title. Yes. Her division, hands down. Tanya Evinger took some shots on Twitter. Did you think that this was going to go any different, folks? Tanya Evinger goes up
10, 15, 10, 14 pounds, something like that, for her fight? Yes, she was a little overweight. Yes, she took the fight on short notice too. Right. But she moved up a weight class. Like, why do these fans have to take shots at her on Twitter? It's not your job to take pot shots at somebody else. Like, these internet trolls are taking over the world and think that it's okay? Like, I don't think that this should have gone any other way than Cyborg destroying Tanya. But don't body shame somebody when it's totally irrelevant from what she did in the fight. Tanya Evinger did remarkable on short day notice. Remarkable in taking a fight with Cyborg, let alone. She stood there toe to toe. Toe to toe. Are you kidding me? And you're going to dog her for that. I disagree with how these people don't accept any kind of responsibility. I don't get it. And like, listen, we're not talking about the fight. We're not talking about John Jones versus DC, the fight. We're not talking about that. DC actually, at one point, got inside of John Jones and was able to put some combos and some shots on John Jones. Okay? And that's what we're not talking about that. And that's what we said was that if Daniel Cormier was going to beat John Jones, he had to get inside and stay there. Stay in the pocket. He stood there. And then all of a sudden he just seemingly got cocky and got caught. And then we're not even talking about Cyborg's and Evinger fight. We're talking about other issues. And it's disappointing because we're not talking about the fight. We're talking about other things. Tanya Evinger stood there inside the pocket with Christian Santos Cyborg. Like, if you could take 9,000 shots from Cyborg, Justino, and still kept coming and do it on short notice, you're one tough chick in my book. Hands down. The fact that it took you, 3 rounds to get beat? It's one of those things that Cyborg is a beast. She always has and always will be. The thing that was proposed to me that as I continue to think after the fight was, and I posted on my Facebook was, yo, get the title, just retire. There's nothing left for you to fight. There's only one fight left for her to defend that title. Holly Holm. There is nobody else in the 145-pound division that deserves a title shot right now against Cyborg outside of Holly Holm. Holly Holm is the only one I see. If UFC does not make that fight happen, Cyborg, just retire with the title. You did what many people thought you would never do, that you never accomplish. Because of you, there's a UFC 145 division. Because of you, there is women's MMA. You are one of the pioneers, a true in the sport. There's no denying what she's done, no matter what the allegations are for her. Bottom line is, she's a beast, a true testament of what women's MMA is, the baddest chick on the planet. Isn't that the truth? So regardless if there's another fight or not, but do you feel... End it. Sean, but do you feel that with Tanya Evinger standing toe-to-toe with Justino in that octagon at 145 in a bigger division than what she is it just me or do you now think that I feel sorry for everybody in the bantamweight division? Because I think that Tanya can run right through that bantamweight division now. Like I said going into this fight, there's a reason why she dominated Invicta, right, for so many years. She's a strong, wary competitor. Grinder. Who can put it all together in the right situation. So yeah, putting her down, moving her down
into her normal weight. I think that her being in there in that cage with Cyborg might have just made her that much better. And how scary is that?
Good point. I don't think anybody saw it that way, but good point. But what many people did not see going the right way was Robbie Lawler versus Donald Cerrone.
That's a joke and a half.
We did not expect Donald Cerrone to get his... Well, yes, we did. My wife said Donald Cerrone was going to get killed. Well, he almost got killed in the first 5 seconds of the fight. But then Donald Cerrone did what Donald Cerrone did. Go ahead. Hit me with everything but the kitchen sink. I'll still stand tall. I'll turn the tide. Donald Cerrone won that fight. I'm not sure who, where, what goggles you were wearing, but Robbie Lawler did not win that fight.
No, it was 2-1 in favor of Donald Cerrone. Like, what were the judges watching? Because there was no way that this fight went Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler won the first round. That was it. The kickboxing, the distance, the cage control, all started seamlessly going towards Donald Cerrone's way. Like, there was nothing Robbie Lawler could do to change that. And he got his hand raised at the end. And that's disappointing.
It was, because I felt bad for Donald Cerrone that this could have been the changing of the guard for Donald Cerrone to finally get his opportunity at getting a title shot. But now you're back to talking about Robbie Lawler versus potentially Tyron Woodley, because GSP doesn't get Tyron Woodley. GSP gets Michael Bisping. You look at Robbie Lawler.
So what happened to Robert Whittaker at this point?
Well, he's back at the bottom of the line.
But Robert Whittaker is the interim champion. Now again, you're talking about a fight. Michael Bisping and GSP, a guy that's been out of fighting for years. But
Tristan, that's not what we're talking about. You're talking about the weight class up. Robert Whittaker and Michael Bisping. But right now I'm talking about the middleweight battle between potentially Robbie Lawler and Tyron Woodley. We're talking about that Donald Cerrone, if he won this fight, would have had the opportunity at Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley wouldn't have anywhere to run. Because Donald Cerrone would bring the fight game to him. Not to say Robbie Lawler wouldn't, but that's kind of what you saw. Now you're hearing rumblings about, Robbie Lawler's going to get a title shot against Tyron Woodley. Pump your brakes.
I would want to see him to face the winner of Jorge Masvidal and Thompson.
And see, I had that one, but then it's like, well, let's take it one step back. Let's take one step back. How about he gets the winner of Neil Magny versus Rafael Dos Anjos?
Okay.
Because why are you going to give Wonderboy Thompson a potential another opportunity at a third fight with Tyron Woodley?
Lacey Hancock in the chat room brought up a very good point. She asks, is politics ever a factor at the level with judging, in your opinion? Truth be told, absolutely. I remember when we got into mixed martial arts and got into covering fights, I remember sitting down and talking to a judge. Remember? Do you remember that conversation that you and I had with the judge? The judge told us, and I'm not joking, this is going to be a conversation that we have had with judges. And I'm not going to name them or anything like that, but
because they're buddies of ours.
Right.
And we respect them.
But we had a conversation with a judge, and the judge looked at my brother and I and said that sometimes, depending on the fighter, judges talk to fighters before the fight, before the event. And they say depending on how they interact with them will ultimately decide which way they swing their vote. So if you treat them good, and you treat them with respect, they might be more inclined to side in your favor.
I must have stepped away and went to the bathroom on that conversation, because I don't remember that one.
Yes, you did. We were at Pachanga covering a fight. We were outside. That's what we were talking about.
But you have a better memory than I do.
Right? But that's what that's what we were told. Point blank. That sometimes if a fight is
is really close, like right down the line, some judges take their personal opinion of the fighter and say, well, he's a good guy. He treated me with respect. So what might have been a close 10-9, 10-8 round, just might get that little tip over into the favor of that. I'm kind of now starting to remember that conversation a little bit. Once you said that portion of it, it's like, okay, I'm starting to remember it a little bit. I do remember that conversation a little bit, but my memory is still a little bit fuzzy compared to yours. But I do remember a little bit,
I do believe there are certain politics
that come into
a factor for judges. Like, it's different when we're sitting there and you got referees right next to us, and the referees are the one that are doing it. Totally different compared to when you actually have legitimate judges that are there for one specific job, and that is to call the fight, to score the fight the way that they see it. Close fights, 98% of the time, you look for that teetering factor. Sometimes that teetering factor, according to the one judge that we have, how do you talk to them? How do you carry on a conversation with them? That's what happens. It's very interesting and a tall tale story about whether or not politics actually plays into a factor or not. So yes, my answer is yes. Your answer, resounding?
Yeah, politics do play a factor.
The Sports Warriors, the one-stop shop for all your local combat sports talk show. No fluff. Real opinions, real talk, just real guys. That's Sean Ducross. I'm Tristan Ducross. Just like always, LFA preview, plus so much more with your boys. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Sean and Tristan Ducross, the Sports Warriors. Check us out on Facebook Live and YouTube on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or you can visit our website at www.ducrossbrothers.com.
All right, everybody. You are listening to the Sports Warriors, Sean and Tristan Ducross. Sean, what's interesting is Legacy Fighting Alliance is now on their 18th show. I'm seriously, every single time I'm looking at Legacy Fighting Championship, Legacy Fighting Alliance, and I'm looking at that number just seamlessly keep growing. It's like, really? They're already at 18 fights under the new LFA? That's insane. But you have LFA 18, Kevin Aguilar versus Justin Rader, vying for Aguilera's title. He came in, he was the last Legacy FC champion, and won the inaugural title for LFA. Now he's won 4 straight via 3 knockouts. Rader's an interesting fight because he's on a 3-fight win streak.
But he's so decorated.
He is. And the fact that Aguilar loves to stand and throw, but Rader loves to get the fight on the ground.
Most definitely.
BJJ background. The fact that he's a world-class wrestler. The guy is a grinder, a tireless worker. The guy is in phenomenal shape. But are we going to see fireworks from Aguilar, or are we going to see a fight that's going to go to the decision?
I think we're going to see a fight that goes to the decision. And what's going to be interesting is, will Aguilar's defense show up this time? Because
he's got to stop a world-class guy who can take anybody down at any given time. You're talking about what we saw with Tyrone Woodley? Man, you're going to have to see Kevin Aguilar do the exact same thing. How many times can you use sprawl to prevent a takedown? Ready, set, go!
Justin Rader, though, I think has the edge, though. Just because he's a decorated fighter, just because he has all the potential in the world to stop somebody, to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, 3-fight win streak, has momentum. No pressure is on this kid. All the pressure is on Aguilar to keep the fight standing. This kid, make no mistake about it, this fight will end up on the ground. And what is Kevin Aguilar going to do
From his back.
Yes. Then the other interesting thing is, remember, Mike the Truth Jackson, right? Former journalist turned MMA fighter who got submitted by Mikey Gall at UFC in the
battle to have the chance to fight CM
Punk. It's like a bad date gone wrong.
Right?
Well, he's on this fight card, trying to go from 0-1
But Sean,
to try to go a split, going 1-1. But he's fighting the older brother of Cyborg Justino, Rafael Justino, who's 2-1 since going to MMA.
The Jackal is what they call him.
If he's really the Jackal, I feel bad for Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson is going to go to sleep.
Dude, I have no problem, where people want to become a fighter, especially when you're around the game a long time.
At least I'm not afraid that, I'm a journalist, I'm a podcast personality, I'm a radio personality, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This ain't getting inside of a cage and getting his face punched in. No way. No thank you. I am good. I'm not going to go, hey, I talk about it. Let me go in and be
you're the
about
other
it.
way around. I would so get inside of a cage if somebody wanted to train me full on, 100%, get inside the cage. I would so step inside that cage. But man, the odds are just stacked heavily against his former MMA journalist, photographer, whatever you want to call him, Mike Jackson, because he might as well have a tombstone set. Here it is. I was the bad girlfriend to the bad date. Got kicked out of the date for the fight against CM Punk. Now I get the Jackal.
You know what? Mike
now I'm going to literally be a laughing hyena.
You know what Mike the Truth Jackson reminds me? Is that when you go into your prom and you sign up to become the prom king, and somebody throws in and fluffs up the ballot box, and they vote for somebody that you're like, wait, he got prom king? That's what Mike the Truth Jackson.
It would probably be better if he was the prom queen, though. I mean, or at least stick him in the corner at the prom. The guy that stands in the far corner that has no date to the prom, that's Mike Jackson. If he comes in and beats Rafael Justino, Justino might as well just retire.
He might as well
he lost to the
MMA's not my gig. MMA's not my gig. And what I'm surprised about that is somebody's gig still is Melvin Guillard. Melvin Guillard went to Australian FC 20 and got viciously KO'd by Israel Adesanya, who was 6'2", 8-0. The guy's a bad dude. He's already a decorated prospect that people are keeping tabs on. He walked right in there and added a name to his resume. But at what point is Guillard going to call it? I get he's only
I think it's 6 straight losses now?
He's 1-7 in the last 10 fights. Two of them are no contest. But what you look at it is that Melvin Guillard is long in the tooth.
No question.
But a guy that's only 33 years old.
Okay, but do you really want your MMA World Tour to be about the knockout king? The guy that gets knocked out every 2 seconds? Do you want to be known for that?
Well, right now he's being known for being the laughing stock of MMA.
Melvin's MMA World Tour. Come see how many times he gets knocked out on the World Tour. That's his headline. I don't want to be that guy that says, oh, hey, Melvin. Dude, 0-6 with 6 knockouts. Your brain is mush.
It's getting there. Fightbook says, how about Melvin versus Jackson in the battle for the prom king? Let's just stuff the ballot, right?
Rudy Lara says you should fight Mike Jackson. Why? So Mike Jackson could... Nope, this might end in a no contest.
They might both get knocked out. simultaneously.
Yes.
At the same
Throw
time.
one punch and get knocked out each. Then you
And-
won't have to worry about either one of them.
And then you'll have another story to talk about because both of them are an interesting topic. But what's an interesting topic that's coming up is the fact that you have a guy named Basile Lomachenko versus Miguel Marega. We cannot not talk about boxing.
Not right now, can we?
And
Like, the
Lomachenko-
momentum is starting to rise.
And
again.
the thing that's momentum is rising with Lomachenko is the fact that this guy has been openly talking about wanting to go to MMA. He trains in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yep.
It's something he wouldn't mind transitioning to. But he's facing a guy named Miguel Marega. Miguel Marega lost convincingly in his last fight. Why would you, as top-ranked boxing, make this fight for the WBO junior lightweight title
it makes no sense.
on free TV when this guy got so dismantled in a unanimous decision in his last fight against Oscar Valdez? Why would you make this fight on free TV on ESPN? My only thought is, well, top rank, ESPN.
What do they want?
Lomachenko is a representative of Top Rank.
Yep.
So is Top Rank trying to create their own Canelo? Because of the fact that this kid is 8-1, 6 knockouts, 2 division champ already, won the 126-pound title just after 3 fights in boxing. He was an amateur record of 396 wins. My God! His brain is already probably scrambled.
But Lomachenko, Sean, everybody's already trying to classify this guy as the pound for pound best of the best.
He's making a big name for it real quick.
But dude, he has faced nobody.
That's true. And
nobody.
And if you face
The
nobody,
only thing that gives me light at the end of the tunnel for Lomachenko is that, my goodness, man, you want to talk. Okay, this is what I love about boxing. Okay, when you get a boxer that understands the technique, the style of boxing, and to be able to become an art, what I would classify as an artist in boxing, that the technique is there. Everything is there. The possibility of this guy is endless. Don't get me wrong. He's going to literally put a Michelangelo painting right there inside that square circle against Marega.
and that's the thing is that if you're looking to showcase a up-and-comer on free TV and you want him to look good,
This is what you're going to do.
That's this fight.
Because Marega, he has the power. He has the grit. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be walking backwards. He's going to be the guy that's going to be engaged. So again, on paper, is it an easy win for Lomachenko? Absolutely. Is this one-sided? Absolutely. But is Marega game for this fight? Oh, most definitely.
Absolutely.
Should it be kind of like an interesting, entertaining fight? Oh, most definitely it should be.
What's the interesting thing to come from this is that when this fight was announced, you had Mikey Garcia, who beat Adrian Broner this week,
And then he
comes out and starts chirping to Lomachenko, hey, I get you next. We're going to fight. They're calling for a fight in November against Lomachenko. You want to fight somebody that's worthy?
You're gonna
fight me.
Fight Mikey Garcia.
And Mikey Garcia dismantled
Adrian
Broner.
Oh.
And
Outpointed him, took him to the distance, took him to the world champ, brought him back from dead, and kept going.
that was interesting. That Adrian Broner and Mikey Garcia, you had no idea who Mikey Garcia was. Really. I didn't know who Mikey Garcia was. But Adrian Broner and Mikey Garcia drew 881 views on free TV, well, not necessarily free TV, but on Showtime, the highest rated boxing this year.
And also drew over 12,000 people in the audience. So let's not forget that, Sean.
12,000 people. And I agree with our buddy Josh Griggs saying that Garcia needs to fight somebody that's a top level.
Loma needs to fight somebody to get to that level of Mikey Garcia.
So it'll be interesting to see where Mikey Garcia goes from here and who's next, because Mikey Garcia has also called Josh Griggs, wait for it, not only did he call Loma out, he called out Keith Thurman.
Dude, everybody's calling out Keith Thurman.
Earl Spence called out Keith Thurman.
One time Keith Thurman, I'm telling you, right now, that is the guy. That is the guy.
That you want to line up against and put all your chips in and go, you know what? That's the guy.
But Sean, okay, one more thing about Loma, okay? Loma's moving, everybody's not talking about this either. Loma's moving up in weight to 130. To 130. That's more muscle mass on him. How's his oxygen level? How's his cardio? What's his power going to be like now going up in weight? And after he gets, again, because he's going to get past Miguel Moraga. It's a done deal. This fight should not go past 6 rounds. But Loma now has an interesting point now getting into his career. Is that the guys are up in the upper level, the 140s, the 145s. Does Loma keep climbing up that ladder in terms of that weight to get big paydays and big time fights? Because ain't nobody down at 125. Nobody cares. Nobody cares at 130, 140, 145. That's where these players are at.
Yeah, so he's going to need to rise up, get up to that upper echelon, and see what's going on. But Adrian Broner needs to be reevaluated. He can't make 140. He looks strung out, looked like he didn't have the power. He needs work. And
but
he needs to realize,
stop bouncing back and forth between the 135s or the 140s.
And I think that's what's playing with his power.
I think he should stay at 140. Instead of this teetering back and forth, saying that I'm going to commit.
We said it last week. He has a hard time making 140. This was the first time he made 140 and didn't miss weight.
Well, that's because I don't want to pay $500K.
So he needs to stay up in weight.
Yeah.
And get his life back together of what type of striker he is. Because if he's not going to have the power, he needs to throw the volume. He did neither against Mikey Garcia. And Mikey Garcia just lined him up, knocked him down like a bowling pin.
Well, Sean, he also looked skittish towards the middle of the rounds too. Like all his wind was sucked out of him by the middle rounds and was hesitant on throwing. So I get that. I see it.
But hey, your boys this week, Saturday, if you're in Temecula, if you're in the Riverside area, you guys need to come down, support your local MMA. That Archangel Worldwide MMA is returning to its home of Riverside at the Riverside.
I cannot pronounce that name, so that is on you.
Municipal Auditorium.
There you go.
So make sure that you check us out. We'll get all the updates and everything else like that for the event. But support your local MMA. You want to see young stars. You want to see the future.
Hit up your boys for the tickets.
This is where you need to be to see this fight card and see these youth guys. It's always a blast when you get to support the up-and-comers.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, our buddy Josh Griggs just did TFE in Indiana that showcased some of the young stars. Like, again, there's a guy that I saw on his last card in Indiana. Saw him again on this card. Trey Waterman.
Right.
That's 2-0 as an MMA.
That's a bad dude.
Showing some great knockout power and is somebody you want to be on the lookout. It just sucks he's kind of in Indiana. He's kind of...
Josh Griggs and company need to fly him out here to on the West Coast.
Right? When he's ready to make his pro debut, or if Josh Griggs even wants to do it, bring him down to California. Because I bet you 10 winners are going to be some people that want to take a shot at this kid. But this kid, so far from what I've seen, he looks actually quite phenomenal. It'll be interesting to watch his growth.
But in the meantime, add us on Facebook, Sean and Tristan Ducross.
Like our fan page, Ducross Bros. You want to talk to us, MMA, you can do it on our fan page, on our Facebooks. You can catch us over talking with the Fight Book MMA family.
Absolutely. In the meantime,
We do this every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Only real talk, real opinions. We're taking the headlines from the MMA world. We preview, break down cards, and give you the latest insight on what's going on around in the MMA world. Until next time, I'm Tristan Ducross, and on my side, as always, my brother,
Sean Ducross. Oh, by the way, Archangel, August 5th, your boys enter the commentary realm.
Yes, sir. So stay tuned for more with the Sports Warriors.